Awesome. Hey folks, thanks for joining me. My name is Tony Bevilacqua. I'm the founder and CEO of Cognitive 3D. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about spatial analytics today. Just to give you some quick background on myself, I've been in this industry since 2015. Took our first product into market in 2016. Entirely focused on kind of this idea of what does it mean to measure human perception? What does it mean to measure human behavior in immersive experiences? I'm a second-time founder. Before running Cognitive 3D, I actually worked in the mobile analytics category, and through that got a lot of experience on how to measure these applications. But more so, I got early exposure when, kind of Facebook acquired Oculus, and really caught my attention that there was something here in terms of being able to understand and quantify how people interact within these 3D worlds. And so with that thesis, I founded Cognitive 3D in 2015, and we've been at it ever since. So I'm going to try to share as much as I can without being overly salesy about my own product. But to be honest with you, we've been at this for a really long time. So I'm going to do my best here. So today's talk, I'm going to talk about elevating 3D applications by discovering a new dimension of insights. I'm going to unpack what does it mean to measure from an XR-based application, and we'll kind of walk through from there.
Leap forward into a new era of 3D metrics beyond 2D. In the past, we tracked taps, clicks, and session times. User paths were linear and predictable. But in 3D, users have the power to dynamically interact with everything, reducing the effectiveness of traditional 2D metrics. It's no longer about passive content consumption. It's about active content participation. Access a magnitude of new metrics for human behavior, such as gaze, position, and hand movements. Get a new dimension of 3D insights with a purpose-built spatial analytics platform from Cognitive 3D.
Pretty cool video. I like that one a lot. Probably because I asked them to make it. I give a talk pretty often called The Evolution of Metrics, and it's really a combination of this particular presentation, but I'm going to go a little bit more into case studies today. The evolution of metrics, we're really playing on this paradigm shift from how content is ultimately being consumed. When I was building my mobile analytics platform, it was very focused on passive content consumption, right? So these are very passive experiences. They're very linear in nature, very predictable in terms of how you move through those experiences, and ultimately the choices that you can make as a user. And when I started to explore the immersive technology space, it became very clear that users have agency. You have this opportunity with engines like Unity and Unreal to unlock this kind of creative chaos. And users have much more ability to influence the outcomes of how these experiences are ultimately consumed. And so I started to kind of ideate on what that meant. And really what it meant is that we were moving from being content consumers to being content participants, having an active role and content, and ultimately how it's being delivered to end users as well. And so with this paradigm shift and kind of taking into that experience on the analytics side, this was a massive surface area for developers, right? When you think about delivering a spatial application to an end user, you're delivering a reality to a human, right? Now, how do we do that in a very reliable, comfortable way? Well, ultimately, it introduces a very massive surface area for developers to create really compelling, engaging, comfortable content that is of high quality. And so if you lack the visibility on this agency and how people interact with these applications, how can you possibly make choices about how to potentially optimize and improve this content as well? And so brought me all the way back to the mobile analytics product. How do we create that visibility? How do we build tools that capitalize on the unique nature of what it means to deliver a spatial application? And what I found is that existing tools really only provide visibility on predictable linear progression. And that's really the thesis and why we built this business. And so I wanted to unpack what it means on the evolution of metrics. User participation offers really a greenfield opportunity for new metrics in human behavior. And if we think about kind of the paradigm shift of moving from platform to platform to platform, this has been happening because the inputs and capabilities of these platforms have been changing over time. On the far left-hand side, we've got the web. It enabled us to consume passively different types of web content, web pages, those types of elements. The primary input of that was things like clicks, typing, page views, those types of elements. And the analytics, the types of decisions that you could make as a business owner were very simple. Then came along mobile. Mobile introduced a new opportunity to build very predictable mobile applications that typically had very linear progression, but it also introduced some new capabilities around input. Touches and taps and the interaction ultimately changed, and we started to get into things like cameras and gyroscope and GPS, and it really unlocked the capabilities these applications could provide, but also the metrics in terms of how we could build better capabilities for our customers. As we fast forward into the XR category, it's a greenfield opportunity. It's huge, right? We think about what it means to measure a human. The space is massive. We have the ability to capture things like eyes and gaze, head movement and 3D position, and how people move through space. What do they do with their hands? Biometric inputs that go along with it. And so we're literally measuring the human behavior, the human participation within these applications, as opposed to passive content consumption on a very predictable path. And so then the question becomes, how can we make that valuable? How can we create better experiences and evolve the way that we address solutions for our customers with these new capabilities? Well, when we think about eye movements, for example, yeah, we can capture maybe what the user might look like, but it unlocks new capabilities from a behavioral perspective to understand things like situational awareness in terms of how people interact with these applications, and are we capturing and keeping attention in the right places? In a mobile game, in a VR game, you might be interested in particular elements of the content. Did it capture and keep people's attention? But on a training scenario, you might be more interested in things like situational awareness. Did we capture and recognize a threat within a particular environment? Did I demonstrate good safety practices within a training scenario? The data can be used in different ways depending on the type of experience or application that you're creating. On 3D position, this is an interesting one as well. In the VR space, the 3D position is very predictable in terms of how people move through space, where do they go, and where do they spend time. And so you can use this in a wide variety of use cases, but I see an opportunity in the future where we start kind of seeing a marrying between 3D positioning and geospatial data as well, where we start thinking about augmented and mixed reality and where do people do valued actions in the real world in immersive technology experiences like mixed reality. On the head movement side, this is a really interesting area, and this is an area that we're exploring a lot more at Cognitive 3D. There's a lot of micro movement that happens from these head rotations, and it gives us some really good insights into how people interact with these environments. But we can also boil down all of this data and recognize how comfortable somebody is. We can look at, kind of their ergonomics and posture. There's lots of different types of metrics that can potentially be unlocked depending on the value proposition you're looking to achieve. I move my hands a lot. I have a bit of an Italian background, but people move their hands a lot in immersive technology as well. And being able to understand and quantify both controller use of how people move their controllers within the environment, but also how hands work into those situations as well. You have the opportunity to ingest that information and use it as objectives or specific insights that you can quantify for your user experience as well. And on the biometric side, I would say that this is much more popular in the academic world today, but I see kind of a surface area for this in the future in a variety of different enterprise use cases as well. And we're starting to see customers think about not just eye tracking, but biometrics like heart rate, galvanic skin response, skin temperature, being able to boil some of that data down into something like cognitive load. And so Cognitive 3D went down this path of trying to create a dashboard that boiled all of this really intricate spatial data into something that was actionable for a developer. And the way we went about it is we tried to unpack what it meant to create quality, right? We think about quality as one of the things that most XR developers are challenged with today. High quality applications create retention. High quality applications create high session duration, and people don't return apps and provide bad reviews for applications that have really great quality. And so we created an index around the 3 key elements that we look at that respect what does it mean to create quality. We created a comfort score, a presence score, and an application performance score. The comfort score unpacks all of that input, all that behavioral data, what people are doing with their hands, their head, their pose, their posture, and boils it down into a number that a developer can use as an indication. Am I doing well for my category? Am I doing well for this industry? What kind of changes can I make to create a higher quality application? And ultimately, we've shipped a dashboard that customers can use to kind of unpack these types of insights. From each of those numbers, each number represents a number of inputs, right? So there's a broad range of inputs that could potentially be changed. And so we use spatial telemetry to surface the different details that might be important for your application. On the performance side, you'll see that we look at things like VRC requirements, right? Are we maintaining 72 hertz to be in the App Store? Are we maintaining 60 hertz to be an app lab? Right, being able to understand that not just across your entire application, but across every headset and variation that might be used as well. Being able to track that information. We collect it over time, we look at it by version, and we also surface performance problems where they occur within the application as well. Bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a top-down representation of performance problems and where they're occurring within your application. So instead of chasing ghosts that maybe you have a performance problem in your app, we give you the capability to see where and why you're having these problems and being able to surface them very quickly. On the right-hand side, this is where we start getting into spatial optimization. And so we've got 2 scores that fit within that, the comfort score and the presence score. On the comfort score, we unpack a whole bunch of ergonomics, pose and posture elements, and boil that down and provide some of the insight represented here as well. We also show you on different types of things you might care about, like if people are prematurely exiting your application, and get some good insight on where that might be happening as well. These tools are meant to provide you the insights that you need as a developer to build a high quality reality, right? The bar is high on what we need to do to make sure that people are comfortable within these applications and they spend time with us as we build and improve our applications as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the tools that we've brought to the equation, specifically for VR training, but this can be used for any immersive technology app. So this one here, this is called Scene Explorer. This is a after-action review, which is basically a one-to-one replay of exactly what the user did and how they behaved within the environment. It provides really actionable insights around the user's behavior, how they moved through space, the objects they interacted with, how they used their hands, how they interacted with the environment. And so being able to surface a recording like this provides a lot of value proposition. Where are users getting stuck? Where are they engaging? What are they looking at? On the right-hand side, we're unpacking a lot of this behavioral data using a tool called the objective system. And the objective system is really interesting in that it can take a lot of behavioral data, spatial data, complex time series, XYZ coordinates, really complex data, and boil it down into actionable insights. So being able to understand, did the user follow? Were they complete on this scenario? Did they comply with this particular set of actions? Did they demonstrate competence in their work? This objective system can be used to assess any behavior from a training application to specific behaviors you might be looking for in a consumer-facing application. And on an individual basis, this is really great for the debug, right? If I've got users that are having really tough time with my application, I might want to pull up something like Scene Explorer to be able to understand how did that user behave and what can I learn from them. We also provide the tools to aggregate the data, right? So being able to look at a dollhouse of your application and overlay spatial data on top of it, this is a real superpower, right? Being able to understand, where am I having performance problems? Where are people spending time? Where did people do in-app purchases or subscribe or cancel their subscription plan on Meta? There's lots of different ways that you can use these tools to understand not just what's happening at the micro level with your individual user, but on the macro level across your entire audience. This is a broader view of the objective system, and this is where the ROI happens. This is the value proposition. This tool set here allows you to set up the criteria that reflect success, completion, compliance throughout your applications. With this particular tool, you can set the criteria like gaze. Did the user look at a specific object? Did they move through space? What did they do with their hands? Specific events that might have happened within that environment as well. And we can look at the outcomes of that information on an aggregate perspective, step by step, and we can also look at the individualized results as well. Spatial data unlocks a wide range of capabilities, and it means delivering a reality to a human is a sophisticated problem. And I just provided just a few examples of some of the things that apply in workflows in the training and simulation category. There's a lot to learn about how people interact with these environments, and some of the insights that we can pull out here. Poor Bob is having all sorts of challenges with trying to reach these boxes, and we can use spatial analytics to surface some of those insights. Wanted to talk about a quick case study on the enterprise side. Enterprise has been a huge category for Cognitive 3D. We do most of our business in training and simulation, but we have over 1,200 applications on the platform that use us for games, entertainment, all sorts of different types of apps. I wanted to talk about training and sim today because we work with a lot of Fortune 500s and wanted to give you some insights on the key things that they found valuable about this particular set of tools. So the first one I wanted to talk about is after-action reviews. On the after-action review side, this is a one-to-one replay of what the user did and how they behaved. It's also our proof of work, right? And this was something that I didn't really expect when we went about building this particular tool and selling it into the enterprise. We believed that the after-action review was important by itself in terms of providing visibility for the folks that are building content, but also providing visibility for the trainers and other stakeholders that would want access to this information. Well, lo and behold, we started to unpack it with the enterprise, and they saw proof of work. They saw limiting liability. They saw, a potential to understand that knowledge was actually delivered for a specific user. And ultimately, this tool gives us the ability to assess at scale on if knowledge was delivered, was content comprehended, and we've got a proof of work to go along with it. We also take the results from things like the objective system and connect it with third-party tools, right? So instead of being on an island with a VR program, you have the capacity to connect this with your existing learning management system and other tools. And so when I start thinking about this from a founder perspective, I see a lot of opportunity for us to integrate with a large variety of other tools and capabilities where we can connect this data and these outcomes where our customers need them. And I think LMS, learning management system integrations, that's just the first step as we kind of move down that path. Another thing that I thought was kind of interesting is we built a tool called Exit Poll, probably back in 2017, somewhere in there. And, it was kind of how do we collect, question and answer data was the original scope of why we wanted to build this. Well, what we found is that enterprises had a really large challenge in collecting qualitative data in a really reliable way. they don't want to administer these VR experiences one-to-one anymore. They want to be able to deploy them, but they want to be able to access sentiment data as well to get a regular stream, a regular flow of data back to the stakeholders in the organization so they can kind of prove how people actually comprehend this stuff and how it's actually being recognized by end users. And we collect tens of thousands of these a day now. It gives us the capacity to understand NPS. It gives us the capacity to understand, how people are comprehending the content and, how they actually, how they feel about it as well. And so I think that this was kind of like the fourth superpower that Cognitive 3D actually brought in some of these more enterprise training-oriented applications. So with that, those are kind of the main things I wanted to talk about today in terms of capabilities. I will open it up if anybody has any questions. I got a few minutes. Anyone? Yeah?
Oh, perfect. Thank you. It's been a long day. I didn't want to yell.
Thank you for sharing your, 6 p.m. with me, by the way. It's good.
Yeah, I could say the same to you.
Yeah.
I think overall, I'm kind of like, so I come from more of a brand marketing side, not a developer side. So it's kind of going to be from that perspective.
Sure.
Two things which kind of like pop out right at me with this. I think we are in a position where we can actually kind of like, we can guide this and make sure we don't necessarily make the same mistakes as programmatic. And well, I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm just saying that does the good outweigh the bad? I'm just saying with spatial, so when we talk about something like eye tracking, we talk about sensory stuff, we talk about, the GSR and like a EEG thing, and it's kind of like, it's fascinating that we're taking old school psychology tests and kind of like bringing it back for this. I am just kind of curious, so these are you focus a lot on what metrics people in marketing or someone kind of looking at kind of like expanding into XR should be looking at. I am just kind of curious, how would you tie this, or rather, what kind of business goals would you tie this to? I am top of my head, a general part of XR. If someone comes and tells me, okay, I need you to show me the conversion, I'm like, bro, it's like, we're not doing this so you can just convert. I'll be like,
yeah, it's brand visibility and viewability are obviously much more quantitative in this modality. If you think about mobile, it's like, yeah, it's on screen, but were they looking at it? The engagement is obviously much more sophisticated in terms of how you can actually unpack that user behavior. I don't want to give you the wrong impression that like eye tracking and biometrics is necessarily the end game. I think that there's a lot to garner out of things like gaze and other types of inputs. But ultimately, I think that the quality of the metric is obviously much higher in this particular use case, and most folks have been paying attention to like gaze, viewability, recall, those types of elements when looking at kind of immersive technology. All right, anybody else?
Hey, my name's Jamie Veris. I'm from Fidelity. And we are creating a lot of data visualizations leveraging AR, VR, XR, and wondering what's the best way to start capturing the data.
Yeah.
And so I think reading on your website, it says that it's just an SDK that you integrate with Unity.
Yeah.
Right. How hard is this? And do you now have to tag everything in your
No,
app?
it's a 10-minute job to get it in. It's meant to be as easy as integrating something like Google Analytics. You drop the code onto the page. Obviously, our tools are a little bit more sophisticated than that, so there is some work involved. But it's like 10 minutes for base integration, and then it's a matter of like how deep you want to go and kind of tagging some more advanced capabilities. You can implement it at any point within your experience. So if you've got existing content, you can implement it now, or you can implement it in new content. And we support pretty much every headset on the market that's worth supporting.
And so is it like a license base, or is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we license based off of the amount of traffic that we're going to end up capturing. And we can boil that into maybe end users, active users, that sort of thing.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I think we're at time, but thank you so much.
Appreciate your time, everyone.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for
Awesome.
coming.
Great.